He strutted into that club like he owned the place, designer watch catching the neon lights, wallet thick enough to stop a bullet, and that unmistakable swagger of a man who'd never been humbled by South America. 30 minutes later, I watched his face crumble as reality hit harder than a Colombian thunderstorm. The bill, $600. The damage, 2 escorts, a handful of overpriced shots, and one very expensive lesson in Latin American nightlife economics. But here's the twist. He wasn't the victim of some elaborate scam. He was the architect of his own downfall. My name is Tom, and I've been dancing with danger across 4 continents for the better part of a decade. Europe taught me sophistication, Africa showed me survival, Central America schooled me in street smarts, and South America became my PhD in human psychology. When I touched down in Medellin 2 years post-pandemic, I thought I had cracked the code. This wasn't my first rodeo in Colombia's most notorious party city. I'd navigated the labyrinth of Parque Lleras before, survived the sensory overload of La Isla, and learned to read the subtle dance between predator and prey that plays out nightly in this concrete jungle. I secured an Airbnb within stumbling distance of the action, close enough to party, smart enough to walk home solo when things got messy, because in Medellin, things always get messy if you're not careful. Let me be transparent about something. I'm not here to judge anyone's lifestyle choices. The nightlife scene, the strip clubs, the underground joints, the company of beautiful women, I've sampled it all. There's an honesty in transactional relationships that I can respect, provided the math makes sense and everyone knows the rules. But I live by a code that's kept me out of trouble across 3 continents. Rule number 1, alcohol is the enemy of good judgment. I stick to sealed water, even when it costs more than a meal back home. Rule number 2, never multiply your risks. 1 companion is expensive enough and exponentially safer than 2. Rule number 3, when you're the foreigner with money, everyone's watching. Act accordingly. These rules have saved my wallet, my health, and probably my life more times than I can count. The club sat in the heart of Parque Lleras like a Venus flytrap disguised as paradise. Hip-hop thundered from speakers that could wake the dead, while predatory beautiful women circled tables of unsuspecting gringos like sharks sensing blood in the water. I'd been there before. I knew the choreography. Stunning woman approaches, sweet words flow like honey, drinks appear like magic, and before you know it, you're staring at a bill that could fund a small village. My strategy was simple. Enjoy the music, appreciate the scenery, maybe exchange numbers if genuine chemistry sparked, and disappear before the trap snapped shut. That's when I met him. He sat at the bar wearing what looked like military surplus, a crisp hat that suggested either actual service or a very committed fashion statement. Something about his bearing screamed West Africa, so my mind tagged him as Mobutu after the infamous Congolese dictator. "Where are you from, brother?" he asked, his accent confirming my geographic guess. "Florida," I replied. I bounced between there and here. Then came the interrogation disguised as conversation. "What's your annual situation looking like? You pulling in over 70? When I admitted I wasn't quite hitting that mark yet, his laugh carried the particular condescension reserved for people who measure worth in dollar signs. "70,000 minimum, or you're basically broke," he declared with the confidence of a man who'd never met a bill he couldn't pay. "Lucky for you, I run an IT operation out of Texas. I might be able to hook you up." The promise hung in the air like morning mist, beautiful but destined to evaporate. As if summoned by his boasting, 2 women materialized beside him. Colombian gorgeous didn't begin to cover it. These were the kind of women who could make grown men forget their own names. Professional beautiful, escort beautiful. They flanked him like bookends, their attention so focused you'd think he was distributing lottery tickets. Hands on his shoulders, whispers in his ear, laughter that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The shots started flowing immediately. "You want something?" Mobutu offered, gesturing toward the growing collection of glasses. "I'm good with water," I said, raising my sealed bottle like a shield. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a conspiratorial whisper. "This place is dirt cheap compared to Miami. You can get a girl for $150 here. Back home, triple that, easy." I nodded non-committally. Must be nice having that kind of disposable income. He puffed up like a peacock in mating season. "When you're making real money, these prices are nothing." The performance continued. More shots materialized. The women's attention intensified. Mobutu basked in the spotlight like a man who'd never been told no, never been challenged, never been humbled by the mathematics of Latin American nightlife. I watched the show with the detached fascination of an anthropologist studying an unfamiliar ritual. This wasn't my first time witnessing the systematic demolition of a gringo's bank account, but the psychology never got old. 30 minutes of premium attention later, Mobutu announced his intentions. "Time to head back to the hotel," he said, standing with the confident swagger of a man about to close the deal of a lifetime. Both women rose with him, their smiles bright enough to power the club's sound system. "Enjoy yourself," I said, genuinely meaning it. We were both adults making adult decisions. But then the waiter appeared. The bill landed on the table like a judicial sentence. Even from my angle, I could see the damage. Over $600 for half an hour of shots and attention. Mobutu's transformation was instantaneous. The swagger evaporated. The confidence cracked. The baller persona dissolved like sugar in rain, revealing something much more human underneath. Fear. He stared at those numbers like they were written in a foreign language. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet. The women watched with professional patience, their smiles never wavering even as their client's world tilted off its axis. No negotiation, no argument, no escape route. Just the cold mathematics of pride meeting reality in a Colombian nightclub. He handed over his credit card with the resigned motion of a man signing his own execution warrant. The transaction processed with digital finality. $600 gone. Without a word of goodbye, he left with his expensive companions, disappearing into the Medellin night like a ghost, carrying a very real financial burden. I never heard from him again. No job offer materialized, no friendly follow-up message, just silence and the lingering lesson of what happens when ego writes checks that wisdom should have refused. Here's what most people miss about stories like this. Mobutu wasn't the victim of some elaborate con game. Every price was probably listed somewhere. Every drink was probably ordered willingly. Every service was likely negotiated in advance. The real scam was internal, a man so desperate to project success that he forgot to protect his actual resources. Pride became the most expensive ingredient in every drink he bought. Colombia doesn't need to trick you. It just needs to give you enough rope and wait patiently while you fashion your own noose. Travel, especially to places where economic disparities create predatory opportunities, teaches you that perception is a luxury few can afford. When you're the foreigner with hard currency, every interaction carries the potential for expensive misunderstandings. The smart money follows simple rules. Stay sober. Alcohol transforms calculation into emotion, and emotion is expensive in Medellin. No prices before ordering. Assumption is the mother of all financial disasters. Negotiate everything. Latin America runs on haggling, except when you're too proud to try. Keep your ego in economy class. First-class pride leads to coach-class bank accounts. Remember that you're always performing. Every interaction is an audition for wealthy tourist, a role that comes with expensive expectations. Medellin will teach you these lessons whether you want to learn them or not. The question is whether you'll pay attention to the free education or insist on the premium course. $600 bought Mobutu 30 minutes of feeling important in a city that specializes in making people feel small. For the same money, he could have enjoyed a week of authentic Colombian experiences, learned salsa from actual locals, or explored the transformation of a city that's rewritten its own story. Instead, he chose the most expensive validation available and walked away poorer in every sense that matters. The beautiful irony? If he'd checked his ego at customs and approached the situation with curiosity instead of conquest, He might have had genuine connections, real conversations, and stories worth telling. But pride, like good Colombian coffee, is a luxury that demands premium prices. Some lessons can only be learned the expensive way. The trick is making sure you're not the one paying tuition. If this story helped you avoid a similar situation, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories from gringos navigating Latin America, the good, the bad, and the expensive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.